green light is still blinking.
That's the link that lets you know that it's on.
Got it.
Why don't you go ahead and say something?
Hello? Good morning. Good morning, Sangha. Good morning, parking lot. Parking lot, Sangha. Little cooler today than it has been in recent weeks. Okay. It's good to see all of you here in the parking lot, and hello to all of you on YouTube. Glad to have you with us today. We are going to begin with the three refuges, and we're going to do as we have done previously out here. Then you will repeat it after me. Deeply awakened mind, the living source of which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to Dharma, the path of mindful living, leading to healing, joy, and enlightenment, the way of peace, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the loving and supportive community of practice, liberation. Cultivated to be known fully. I am aware that the three jewels are within my heart. I vow to realize them. Insanely. Content with few possessions, and to keep my body healthy. Worry and anxiety in order to be light and free. I am aware that I owe so much to my parents, teachers, friends, and all beings. I vow to be worthy of their trust, to practice wholeheartedly, so that understanding and compassion will flower, and I can help living beings be free. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. Buddha, the Sangha. Good morning again. July 12th. Title of today's Dharma talk is Be Still and Know. There's a verse in the Judeo-Christian Bible noted in the book of Psalms, chapter 46, verse 10, And that verse says, "Be still and know that I am God." Now, the Hebrew word for "be still" is rapa, which literally means to drop and to let go. The same term, "be still," in Sanskrit is sankasayeti and carries the same translation: drop and let go. That verse is easily translatable into our Buddhist teachings. While discussing this on a video call this past week with one of the Sangha members, he showed me the tattoo he has on his forearm in Hebrew. And the tattoo reads, "Be still and know that I am God." And he told me, I like to look at that and break it down. I start with, "Be still and know that I am God." I go from that to, "Be still and know." I break that down to, "Be still." And then I break it down to just the word "be." I love that, because it is, in essence, a very Buddhist concept about being by dropping body and mind and letting go of ego. That is the concept of being. Now, over the past several Dharma talks that I've given, I have used the word interbeing. So when we follow that up with the concept of interbeing, the interconnectedness of all things, we come to the conclusion that we literally, not figuratively, are one. Back to being still. Being still is very crucial because it goes far beyond hearing, or hearing in the quietude, like in meditation. It goes far beyond listening with the ears. Being still means relying on our critical thinking, empathy, and compassion, and literally opening our hearts to the feel of suffering. When we do deep listening with we open our hearts to the feel of suffering. This is the Bodhisattva way. This is the path. Now, throughout the teaching and the discourses of the Buddha, whenever he is addressing the assembly, with some teaching that he considers to be of import, he seems to always begin with either "Listen, monks," or just purely "monks." That's how he gets their attention. This is basically telling them to be still and know, be still, be in this teaching. Now, those of you who know me know that it is a very rare occasion. Now, those of you who know me know that it is a very rare occasion when I engage in debate of any kind on Facebook. Most of the time, I find it to be an exercise in futility because rational thinking seems a bit missing in action in the times in which we are living. Following a thread about Black Lives Matter and so on. I saw a post last week from a friend of mine that made me chuckle. She said, saying all lives matter is like shouting, "It's my birthday too," at somebody else's birthday party. Back to the other post. I just couldn't resist, against my better judgment, responding. This is where my mindfulness did not immediately kick in. I basically said, it's time for all of us old white men to sit down, shut up, and be silent until true understanding of what others are going through. And the only way I immediately regretted that post because the majority of people who responded back to me, number one, had no idea what I was talking about. And the others were telling me, you have no right to talk to us like that. Two very good reasons not to engage in a debate on Facebook. I'm just telling you. Just putting it out there. Now, perhaps I just didn't articulate my, or perhaps I overestimated the audience understood the concept of interbeing and heart listening. It is not an easy concept to understand, and it's even more difficult to put into action. Obvious to all of you that I am not a Black person. Although several generations ago, I come from a lineage that includes Blackness. I am not an Asian person. Although by marriage I am related to the Asian population. I am not a refugee. But at some point in time, my ancestors were refugees. In fact, the indigenous American Indians are probably the only ones in America that were not refugees at some point. I am not Hispanic, although by marriage, I have Hispanic heritage. If I were to say to any suffering Black person, I understand what you're going through, I wouldn't blame that person if he just knocked me square on my butt. If I said to a refugee, I understand your suffering, that refugee could just look at me cross-eyed and say, what are you thinking? What planet are you from? So how then do we understand? First of all, even if I have been through a similar experience, I cannot say, I understand what you're going through. I was a military psychologist in the Army. And one day I had a young 19-year-old troop that was referred to me by his commanding officer. And his job was to be in the belly of Sherman tanks as they were out on exercises. And the kid was scared to death. I made the mistake of saying, I understand. I understand what you're going through. It was near the end of the day when my commanding officer came up to me and he said, I understand that Colonel so-and-so referred one of his troops to you today. I said, yes, sir. Right. He said, I also understand that you told that troop that you understood what it was like for him to be in the belly of a Sherman tank. I paused, then said, yes, sir, I did. He said, okay, at 0600 tomorrow morning, you are going to report to Colonel so-and-so for training. I did. Guess where they put me? In the belly of a Sherman tank. Now, I don't know if you know anything about Sherman tanks, but they can get going 40, 50 miles an hour over rough terrain. You're sitting there, you're sweating because that's like an up in there. It's bouncing up and down. You have and then when I was done with that little exercise, they got all of us troops out and we all had our packs on to have our little army shovels. And they said, you have to dig a hole deep enough to lay in because the tanks are coming. Man, I was scrambling. I was digging as fast as I could. I got a hole that was deep enough for me to curl up in. All right. And then you could hear the tanks coming in the distance. And they made sure to roll over with their tracks every hole. To be honest with you, I think I wet myself. Okay. Now, that was just one experience. And I still didn't have the right to tell that troop, I understand. Because while I went through it one time, that was not my life. Black lives do matter. White lives do matter. Brown lives do matter. Yellow lives do matter. Police lives do matter. And yes, really, all lives do matter. But to understand the suffering, it takes deep heart listening. What about action? Action that is misinformed is careless at best and dangerous at worst. Action can only follow deep heart listening and interbeing. So we can not only know somebody else's experience or suffering, not only feel somebody else's experience or suffering, but be somebody else's experience of suffering with them. to open our hearts to that level where we sit with them, we're in angst with them, we cry for them, we viscerally feel the pain and suffering that they're going through. How can we do that? Only through the concept of interbeing. It starts with that one acknowledgement. We are one. And then we have to know that we are one. Be still and know. Be still. Be. This is the truth of interbeing. As we prepare for meditation today, I'm going to ask you to focus on these three following things. Be still and know. Be still and be. What it means to interbeing, to have that experience. Prepare yourselves for meditation. thank you for today, both in the parking lot. I think this is the biggest crowd we've had in the parking lot. Thank you all for being here. And on YouTube, thank you all for being here. We appreciate your presence. Be well, have a good rest of your day.
Stand up so people aren't dying and.
Sorry about the sound. About that. Out of practice, but thanks for being here. No, both on, yeah. Nice to see everyone. Have a good day. Waters. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, E.G. has a tattoo from when she was attacked by the Nipples, and it says, I think it says, "Be still," because she said she just heard that. Be still.
How you doing? Good.